Supreme Overlord Kael'thar sat on his throne of crystallized starlight, watching the holographic display with growing amusement. The image showed a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. Earth, they called it. A single world inhabited by a species that had barely touched the stars. "This is what concerns the scouts?" Kael'thar's voice rumbled through the grand chamber. His four arms gestured dismissively at the projection. "A civilization that still uses chemical rockets?" General Vortan, his scales gleaming under the chamber's lights, stepped forward. "My lord, they have achieved basic fusion drives. They have established small outposts on their moon and neighboring planets, but you are correct. They are primitive by our standards." Kael'thar's species, the Voxians, had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their kingdom stretched across 200 star systems. 47 different alien species bowed to Voxian supremacy. Some had surrendered peacefully, most had not. It made no difference in the end. The Voxian military machine was unstoppable. The Overlord's natural armor plating caught the light as he leaned forward. Voxians were built for conquest. They stood 3 meters tall, with thick skin that could withstand extreme temperatures. They lived for centuries, giving them patience that shorter-lived species could never match. Their technology was refined over millennia of constant warfare. "Show me their military capabilities," Kael'thar commanded. The hologram shifted. Images of human warships appeared, clunky vessels covered in primitive armor plating. Their weapons were laughably simple: missiles with explosive warheads, magnetic accelerators that launched metal slugs, and crude energy weapons that would barely scratch Voxian shielding. "They have approximately 200 warships," Vortan reported. "Most are defensive platforms orbiting their homeworld. They call it the Earth Defense Force. It was formed only 15 years ago after they encountered the Traders Guild." Kael'thar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for Voxian laughter. 15 years? We have commanders with battle experience spanning centuries. What threat could they possibly pose? Another advisor, Scholar Fenris, spoke up. Her tone was cautious. "My lord, I have studied their cultural broadcasts. These humans are unusual. They have an extensive history of warfare against themselves." "Civil wars?" Kael'thar waved a hand. "Every species fights among its own before uniting. What of it?" "Not just civil wars, my lord, constant wars. For their entire recorded history. Thousands of years of continuous conflict. They have developed weapons specifically designed to kill other humans in the most efficient ways possible. Chemical weapons, biological agents, nuclear bombs that poison entire regions." "Then they are barbarians," Kael'thar interrupted. "Even better. Barbarians are easily conquered. They lack discipline and unity." But Fenris persisted. "My lord, they united remarkably quickly when they discovered they were not alone in the universe. They formed a planetary government within 5 years. That level of cooperation is unprecedented for such a young species." Kael'thar stood, his massive frame dominating the chamber. "Enough debate. The humans sit on a world rich in rare minerals. Their system's asteroid belt contains resources we need. They will submit to the kingdom, or they will be removed. It is that simple." He turned to General Vortan. "Send the standard ultimatum. They have 7 days to surrender unconditionally. After that, the 7th Conquest Fleet will enforce compliance." The general bowed. "As you command, my lord." 6 days later, the reply came from Earth. Admiral Helena Voss stood before the United Defense Council, a holographic projection of the Voxian message floating between them. The council chamber was deep beneath Geneva, Switzerland, protected by layers of concrete and advanced shielding. 12 representatives from Earth's major nations and colonies sat around the circular table. "They want total surrender," Helena said flatly. She was a tall woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. We would become a vassal state. They would extract our resources, control our government, and conscript our population for labor. Council Chairman Martinez looked pale. What are our chances if we fight? Honestly? Poor. Helena pulled up tactical data. Their technology is superior. Their ships are faster and better armed. They have experience conquering dozens of worlds. Then we should surrender, one representative said. Save lives. Helena's expression hardened. Have any of you read the reports from the civilizations currently under Voxian rule? The Kelthans had a population of 12 billion. Now they have 4 billion. The disappeared were sent to labor camps on toxic worlds, mining operations with 90% mortality rates. The Voxians view conquered species as expendable resources. Silence filled the chamber. Surrender means slow extinction, Helena continued. At least if we fight for our children's future. Another representative spoke. But we cannot win. Helena smiled, and there was something cold in that smile. Maybe we cannot win, but we can make them regret ever coming here. Humans have been fighting wars since we lived in caves. We know how to hurt an enemy, even a stronger one. Guerrilla warfare, asymmetric tactics. We make it so painful, so costly, that they decide we are not worth the trouble. Chairman Martinez looked around the table. We vote. All in favor of rejecting the Voxian ultimatum? 12 hands rose, unanimous. Then God help us all, Martinez whispered. Helena transmitted Earth's response herself. It was brief. Humanity rejects your terms. Leave our system or face the consequences. When Kael'thar received the message, his laughter echoed through the throne room for minutes. The humans threatened him? A planet-bound species threatened the Voxian kingdom? General Vorton dispatched the 7th Fleet. 300 warships should be sufficient. I want this over quickly. Make an example of them. The general saluted. And if they resist, my lord? Kael'thar's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Then show them why 47 species kneel before us. Show them the price of defiance. As the Voxian fleet began its journey toward Earth, Helena Voss stood in the command center of Orbital Defense Platform Armstrong. Through the windows, she could see Earth below, blue and beautiful and fragile. All stations, begin evacuation protocols, she ordered. Civilian populations to underground shelters, all military personnel to battle stations. Her tactical officer looked nervous. Admiral, they outnumber us 3-1. Helena checked her sidearm and picked up her helmet. Then we will just have to be 3 times as mean. These aliens are about to learn something important about humanity. What's that, ma'am? We are very, very good at killing things that threaten us. The Voxian 7th Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. Their hulls were covered in adaptive armor that could withstand nuclear detonations. Their weapons could glass planets. Fleet Commander Zarketh stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance, confident in his inevitable victory. He had conquered 12 worlds in his 2-century career. This would be his 13th, and likely the easiest. Status report, he commanded. Sensors detect defensive platforms around the 3rd planet and its moon, his tactical officer reported. Approximately 40 major installations, multiple smaller satellites, primitive design as expected. Zarketh nodded. Begin approach, standard formation. When we reach weapons range, transmit final surrender demand. If they refuse, destroy their orbital platforms and begin bombardment of military targets. The fleet moved forward like a school of metallic predators, confident and unhurried. What they did not know was that every sensor sweep they made was being analyzed by human computers. Every ship's position was tracked. Every weakness was being cataloged by minds that had spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of war. Admiral Helena Voss watched the enemy fleet approach on her tactical display. The command center was silent except for the hum of computers and the quiet breathing of her crew. Everyone knew what was coming. "Range?" she asked calmly. "Enemy will reach optimal firing distance in 20 minutes, her weapons officer replied. Helena activated the fleet-wide channel. "All stations, this is Admiral Voss. I know you are scared. I know the odds look impossible. But remember who we are. We are humans. We are the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. We are the descendants of warriors and survivors. Today we show these aliens why Earth has never been conquered." She paused, then added, "For our families, for our world, for humanity." Across the fleet, on platforms and ships and in fighter cockpits, humans readied themselves. Some prayed. Some checked their weapons one last time. Some kissed pictures of loved ones. All of them prepared to fight. The Voxian fleet crossed into weapons range. Commander Zarketh was about to order the final transmission when something unexpected happened. The humans fired first. Railgun Platform Armstrong lit up like a small sun as it unleashed a barrage of tungsten slugs. Each projectile was accelerated to 3% of light speed. At that velocity, the kinetic energy was devastating. The lead Voxian destroyer never saw it coming. The tungsten slug punched through its shields like they were paper, through the armor like it was butter, and out the other side. The ship exploded, torn apart by the sudden decompression and secondary explosions. "Evasive maneuvers!" Zarketh roared, his confidence shattered in an instant. "Return fire!" But the humans were not done. Hidden nuclear mines placed weeks ago along predicted approach vectors detonated. Fusion fire engulfed a dozen Voxian ships. The electromagnetic pulse scrambled sensors and communication. Then came the fighters. Human pilots in small, nimble craft swarmed the Voxian formation. The aliens had never seen anything like it. These pilots flew with reckless abandon, making maneuvers that should have killed them from the G-forces alone. Their ships were fragile compared to Voxian fighters, but they moved like angry hornets. Lieutenant Sarah Chen pulled her fighter into a spin that made her vision gray at the edges. She locked onto a Voxian cruiser and fired a spread of missiles. The cruiser's point defense took out most of them, but 3 got through, scorching the hull. "Ha! Got you, you overgrown lizard!" she shouted into her comm. Her wingman, Marcus Liu, was on her right. "Chen, you are insane. Insane keeps me alive." She dove toward another target, missiles blazing. But the Voxians were not helpless. Their superior numbers began to tell. For every Voxian ship damaged, 2 human fighters fell. The battle became a brutal melee, ships exploding in silent bursts of light against the black of space. Helena watched her forces dying and forced herself to remain calm. This was what she expected. Humanity could not win a straight fight. But they did not need to win. They needed to hurt the enemy badly enough to give them pause. "Deploy Countermeasure Delta," she ordered. Across the battlefield, human ships began broadcasting false signals, creating phantom targets on Voxian sensors. In the confusion, 3 human destroyers closed to point-blank range with a Voxian capital ship and fired everything they had. The Voxian shields collapsed under the barrage, and the human ships rammed it at full speed. The resulting explosion lit up the entire orbital zone. Commander Zarketh could not believe what he was seeing. These humans fought like madmen. No, worse than madmen. They fought with calculated fury, trading their lives for maximum damage. His fleet had lost 40 ships already, and they had barely pushed past the outer defenses. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human commander," his communication officer said. "On screen." Admiral Voss appeared, her face calm despite the battle raging around her. "Commander, I am giving you one chance. Retreat now, and we will cease fire. Stay, and we will destroy every ship you have." Zarketh's mandibles clicked in fury. "Your threats are empty, human. You have lost more ships than us." Helena smiled coldly. "Yes, and we are willing to lose every ship we have. Are you? Tell me, Commander, what will your overlord say when you return with half your fleet destroyed? By primitives?" The transmission ended. Zarketh hesitated. He had lost 40 ships. The humans had lost twice that, but they showed no signs of stopping. If anything, they fought harder as their numbers dwindled. What kind of species was this? The battle raged for 6 more hours. The Voxians pushed forward, taking terrible casualties at every kilometer. Human platforms fired until their power cores overheated and exploded. Human ships rammed enemy vessels when their weapons ran dry. Human fighters continued attacking even with half their systems destroyed. Finally, the Voxian fleet broke through to Luna, Earth's moon. But there was no victory in it. Of the 300 ships that began the battle, only 80 remained functional. The human forces were decimated, their orbital platforms destroyed, their fleet reduced to scattered survivors. But Commander Zarketh looked at his losses and felt something he had never experienced in 2 centuries of conquest. Doubt. "Retreat," he ordered quietly. "Sir?" His tactical officer was shocked. "Retreat!" Zarketh roared. "Back to the rally point! Send message to Supreme Overlord! We need reinforcements." As the Voxian fleet limped away from Earth's orbit, Helena Voss slumped in her command chair. Her platform was damaged, life support failing. Around her, her crew worked frantically to keep them alive. "We won?" someone asked. "We survived," Helena corrected. "We bloodied their nose, but they will be back, with more ships." She looked at Earth through the cracked viewport, still blue and beautiful despite everything. "And we will be ready," she whispered. Supreme Overlord Kael'thar stared at the report in disbelief. The 7th Fleet, one of his most powerful forces, had been reduced to barely a quarter of its strength, by humans, by a species that had not even colonized its own solar system properly. "Impossible," he muttered, reading the casualty figures again. General Vortan stood at attention, his scales darker than usual with shame. "My lord, Commander Zarketh reports that the humans fought with unprecedented aggression. They used tactics we have never encountered, kamikaze attacks, hidden nuclear weapons, false surrender signals." "Dishonorable tactics," Kael'thar interrupted. "The actions of cowards." "Perhaps, my lord, but effective cowards." Vortan pulled up combat footage. "Watch this." The hologram showed a human fighter, its hull breached and leaking atmosphere, ramming a Voxian frigate at full speed. Both ships exploded in a brilliant flash. "They sacrificed themselves willingly," Vortan continued. "Our soldiers are trained to value survival and tactical withdrawal. The humans seem to have no such programming. They fight until they are dead or victorious. Nothing in between." Kael'thar felt his anger rising. "Then we will give them death. Assemble the 3rd, 9th, and 12th fleets, 900 warships. I will personally oversee this campaign. The humans will learn that defiance has a price." While the Voxian kingdom mobilized its forces, something else was happening on Earth. In a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, the United Defense Council was having a very different discussion. Admiral Helena Voss, her arm in a cast from the battle, stood before a massive holographic star map. Red dots marked Voxian-controlled systems. Earth was a tiny blue dot surrounded by enemies. "The Voxians are gathering their forces," Helena said. "Intelligence estimates 900 ships, maybe more. They will come at us with everything they have." Chairman Martinez looked exhausted. "Then we cannot win. Our fleet is destroyed. Our platforms are gone. Even with every ship we can build in the next 3 months, we are not going to wait for them," Helena interrupted. The room went silent. What do you mean? Martinez asked carefully. Helena expanded the star map, zooming in on a system 600 light-years away. This is Vox Prime, the Voxian capital, homeworld to 12 billion Voxians, the seat of their empire. You cannot be serious, another council member said. We do not have the ships to attack their capital. It would be suicide. Helena's expression was hard. The Voxians think in terms of honorable warfare, fleet against fleet, soldier against soldier. They follow rules that make sense to them. But humans? We learned a long time ago that rules do not matter when your survival is at stake. She pulled up classified files. 3 years ago. The Traders Guild gave us faster-than-light technology. We have been studying it, improving it. Our engineers found something the traders never told us about. High-risk jump points. Shortcuts through space that reduce travel time by 80%. High risk? Martinez asked. What does that mean? It means there is a 20% chance the ship will be torn apart by gravitational shear, Helena admitted. Most species consider it too dangerous, but 20% risk is better than 100% certainty of defeat. She looked around the room. The Voxians are gathering their fleet to attack Earth. That means their capital is less defended than usual. I propose we take 50 ships, use the high-risk jumps, and hit Vox Prime directly. The council erupted in arguments. It was insane. It was impossible. It violated every military doctrine. Helena waited for the noise to die down. You asked what our chances are in a defensive battle. 0. But if we strike their capital, if we show them that nowhere is safe, that humanity can reach out and hurt them in their own home, then maybe, just maybe, they will decide we are not worth the cost. Martinez looked at her for a long moment. You are talking about terrorism. I am talking about survival, Helena replied. The Voxians declared war on us. They came to burn our cities and enslave our children. I will not apologize for fighting back with every tool we have. After hours of debate, the vote passed by a single vote. 3 weeks later, 50 human warships gathered at a hidden staging point beyond Neptune. These were not the defensive platforms that fought at Luna. These were attack vessels, designed for speed and hitting power. Their crews were volunteers, every single one. Helena stood on the bridge of the flagship Indomitable, looking at her small fleet. 50 ships to attack the most heavily defended system in the Voxian kingdom. The odds were not just bad, they were laughable. All ships report ready, Admiral, her tactical officer said. Helena activated the fleet-wide channel. Crew of the strike force, you all know the mission. We are going to jump deep into enemy territory. We are going to hit them where they have never been hit before. Many of us will not return, but we will make them remember. We will teach them that humanity does not roll over and die. We fight. Are you with me? The channel erupted with affirmative responses, cheers, battle cries, even some laughter. Helena smiled. Then let's go remind these aliens why Earth has never been conquered. Initiate jump sequence. The 50 ships vanished from normal space, taking the dangerous shortcuts that no sane species would risk. On Vox Prime, life continued as normal. Citizens went about their daily routines, confident in the superiority of their military. The kingdom had stood for 3,000 years. Nothing could threaten it. Then the human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, appearing inside the system's defensive perimeter. Alarms blared across the planet. Orbital defense platforms began tracking the unexpected contacts. The local defense fleet scrambled to intercept, but the humans were not there to fight a prolonged battle. They had a different strategy. All ships, execute bombardment protocol, Helena ordered. Target military installations only. Make every shot count. The human fleet split into groups, each targeting different orbital facilities. Railguns fired, missiles launched, and energy weapons blazed. The Voxian defenses were formidable, but they were designed to stop large invasion fleets. not a lightning raid by ships that moved with desperate speed. A human destroyer, critically damaged by defensive fire, aimed itself at an orbital construction yard and accelerated to ramming speed. The impact destroyed both the ship and the facility, sending debris raining down on the planet below. Voxian fighters swarmed the human fleet, and the battle became a chaotic melee. Human ships fought with the same reckless aggression they showed at Luna, trading their lives for maximum damage. On the surface of Vox Prime, citizens watched in horror as their orbital defenses burned. Some of the debris fell into the atmosphere, creating streaks of fire across the sky. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Voxian homeworld was under attack. Supreme Overlord Kelthar received the news while inspecting the assembled fleets preparing to attack Earth. His blood ran cold as he watched the footage from Vox Prime. "How did they get there?" he demanded. "How did they bypass our early warning systems?" No one had an answer. Helena knew they could not stay long. Already her fleet was down to 30 ships. The Voxian defenses were recovering from the initial shock. "All ships, withdrawal protocol," she ordered. "We have done what we came to do." The surviving human vessels fought their way back out of the system, taking horrendous casualties, but refusing to surrender. When they finally jumped back to faster than light, only 18 ships remained. But the damage was done. The Voxian capital had been attacked. Their pride had been wounded. Their sense of invincibility had been shattered. And across the galaxy, subject species under Voxian rule watched the footage and began to wonder if their masters were truly invincible after all. The attack on Vox Prime changed everything. Across the Voxian kingdom, fear spread like a virus. If the capital itself was not safe, what did that mean for the outer colonies? The subject species, kept in line for centuries through fear of Voxian military might, began to whisper of rebellion. But Supreme Overlord Kael'thar was not ready to surrender. He was furious. The humans had humiliated him twice now. No species had ever dared to strike at Vox Prime. The insult could not stand. "We proceed with the Earth assault," he announced to his war council. "But we add a new objective: total annihilation. When we are done, humanity will be extinct. Their world will be a monument to the price of defiance." General Vortan looked uncomfortable. "My lord, our intelligence reports suggest the humans have more surprises. Perhaps we should—" "Enough!" Kael'thar's voice echoed through the chamber. "I have made my decision. Assemble the fleet. We leave in 3 days." What Kael'thar did not know was that human intelligence had infiltrated his communication networks. Every plan, every fleet movement, every strategic discussion was being monitored and analyzed by Earth's best military minds. Admiral Helena Voss studied the intercepted data in her command bunker. The Voxian fleet was massive, 900 ships, all converging on Earth. Even with humanity's unconventional tactics, the odds were impossible, unless they changed the game entirely. "How long until the Voxian fleet reaches Earth?" she asked her intelligence officer. 12 days, ma'am." Helena pulled up a star map, her fingers tracing paths through Voxian space. "We cannot win a defensive battle, but what if we do not fight one?" Her staff looked at her with confusion. "The Voxians are gathering their fleet to attack Earth," Helena continued. "That means their other systems are vulnerable. More importantly, their capital is still recovering from our last raid. And according to intelligence, the Supreme Overlord himself will be leading the attack on Earth." Understanding dawned on her tactical officer's face. "You want to take Vox Prime while their fleet is away." "Not just take it," Helena said. "Occupy it. Force Kael'thar to choose between conquering Earth and saving his own homeworld." It was an insane plan. They would need to gather every remaining warship, transport, and soldier. They would need to hold a planet against inevitable counterattack. but it was humanity's only chance. The word went out across Earth and its colonies. Every able-bodied person with military training was called up. Factory workers became soldiers, engineers became pilots, retired veterans came out of retirement. Humanity mobilized for total war. 8 days later, a fleet of 200 human ships departed for Vox Prime. It was not a proper military fleet. Half the vessels were converted freighters and colony ships, hastily armed with whatever weapons could be mounted. But each one carried soldiers, equipment, and the determination to survive. Helena commanded from the Indomitable, newly repaired from the last battle. She knew this was humanity's last gamble. If they failed, Earth would be defenseless. But if they succeeded, they might break the kingdom itself. The fleet used the high-risk jump points again. 3 ships were lost to gravitational shear, but the rest emerged in the Vox Prime system. This time, they were not there for a quick raid. This time, they were there to stay. The Voxian defenders, still recovering from the previous attack, scrambled to respond, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The human fleet fought with desperate fury, clearing orbital space with brutal efficiency. Then came the ground assault. Thousands of drop pods fell from orbit like deadly rain. Each one contained human soldiers in powered armor, carrying weapons designed for urban warfare. They landed in the capital city in military bases, in strategic locations across the planet. The Voxians had never experienced ground invasion. Their conquests were always done from orbit, bombarding enemies into submission. They were not prepared for human soldiers kicking down doors and fighting room by room. Captain James Rodriguez led his squad through the streets of the capital. The Voxians were bigger and stronger, but humans had been fighting in cities for thousands of years. They used every trick in the book. "Frag out!" Rodriguez shouted, tossing a grenade around a corner. The explosion was followed by Voxian screams. His squad moved forward, weapons ready. A Voxian soldier appeared, his 4 arms wielding multiple weapons. Rodriguez's team focused fire, and the alien went down. "Keep moving," Rodriguez ordered. "We need to secure the government district." Across the planet, similar battles raged. Human forces used guerrilla tactics, hit-and-run attacks, and psychological warfare. They broadcasted their progress on Voxian communication networks, ensuring every citizen saw their military losing. The fighting was brutal. Humans died by the hundreds. But for every human that fell, they made the Voxians pay in blood. Supreme Overlord Kyle Thar received the news when his fleet was 3 days from Earth. His homeworld was under invasion. His capital was burning. Rebels in conquered systems were rising up, emboldened by humanity's audacity. "We turn back," he said, his voice hollow. "Maximum speed to Vox Prime." But General Vorton shook his head. "My lord, if we turn back now, the humans on Earth will regroup. We will have to fight this war all over again." Kael'thar stood in his command center, faced with an impossible choice: save his homeworld or conquer Earth. Either way, he could not win both. For the first time in his long life, the Supreme Overlord felt something unfamiliar: fear. On Vox Prime, Helena's forces pushed toward the Imperial Palace. The defenders fought hard, but they were slowly being overwhelmed by human tactics and determination. Helena herself led the final assault on the palace. Her armor was scorched, her helmet cracked, but she moved forward with her soldiers. They breached the palace gates with explosive charges. Voxian guards tried to hold them back, but human soldiers fought with the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. Finally, they reached the throne room. Kael'thar's personal guards made their last stand there, fighting with honor even as they fell. And then Helena stood before the empty throne of starlight, the symbol of 3,000 years of Voxian supremacy. "Broadcast this across all Voxian networks," she ordered, her helmet camera recording everything. "I am Admiral Helena Voss of Earth. Your supreme overlord declared war on humanity. He vowed to enslave us, to destroy our world. He made a mistake. She sat down on the throne, a human woman covered in the dust and blood of battle, claiming the seat of the Voxian Empire. Humanity does not surrender. We do not kneel. You came to our home with fire and death. So we brought fire and death to yours. Your overlord is fleeing back to save his capital. Your empire is fracturing. Your subject species are rebelling. Helena leaned forward, her eyes hard. And we are not done yet. Kael'thar, if you are listening, come home. Come face the consequences of your arrogance. Come see what happens when you declare war on Earth. The broadcast went out across the galaxy. Subject species watched in amazement. Neutral powers watched in shock. The Voxian military watched in horror as their supreme overlord's throne was occupied by an alien warrior. The kingdom was shattered, not by superior firepower or technology, but by a species that refused to accept defeat. A species that would fight with rocks and sticks if necessary. A species that evolved on a death world and carried that savage will to survive into the stars. Kael'thar's fleet turned back toward Vox Prime, but it was already too late. The damage was done. The illusion of invincibility was broken beyond repair. Supreme Overlord Kael'thar arrived at Vox Prime to find his homeworld occupied by human forces. His capital city showed the scars of battle. Smoke still rose from burning buildings. His throne, the seat of his power for centuries, was held by a human woman who stared down his fleet with cold defiance. "My lord, shall we begin orbital bombardment?" General Vortan asked carefully. Kael'thar looked at his homeworld, at the billions of Voxian civilians below who would die in such an attack. He looked at his fleet, exhausted from the rapid journey back. He looked at the reports coming in from across the kingdom, rebellions on 15 worlds, entire fleets refusing orders, subject species declaring independence. The kingdom was falling apart. "Open a channel to the human commander," Kael'thar said quietly. Admiral Helena Voss appeared on the screen, still wearing her battle-scarred armor. Behind her, human soldiers guarded Voxian prisoners of war, including members of the Imperial family. "Overlord Kael'thar," Helena said, her voice tired but firm. "Are you ready to discuss terms?" For a long moment, Kael'thar said nothing. Then, slowly, he performed the Voxian gesture of acknowledgement, a lowering of all four arms in respect to a worthy opponent. "What are your terms, Admiral?" Helena pulled up a holographic document. "Unconditional ceasefire. Withdrawal of all Voxian military forces from Earth's system. Recognition of Earth's sovereignty and independence. Reparations for the damages caused by your attacks. And most importantly, the liberation of all species currently held under Voxian rule." "You ask me to dismantle the kingdom," Kael'thar said. "The kingdom dismantled itself the moment you declared war on Earth," Helena replied. "I am just acknowledging reality. Your subject species are already rebelling. Your military is fractured. Your economy is collapsing. You can spend years trying to hold together an empire that is already dead, or you can accept the new reality and maybe salvage something from the ruins." Kael'thar looked at his advisors. They all knew she was right. The war had cost them everything. They had lost 20% of their fleet. Their capital was occupied. Their reputation for invincibility was destroyed. Subject species across the kingdom were seizing their chance for freedom. "And what guarantee do I have that humans will not simply conquer us in return?" Kael'thar asked. Helena stood up, walking to the throne room window that overlooked the damaged city. "We did not want this war, Overlord. You brought it to us. We fought because we had no choice. But humans understand the cost of war better than most species. We have been killing each other for 10,000 years. We know what victory actually looks like. She turned back to face the camera. "We do not want your empire. We want to go home. We want to rebuild our orbital platforms and repair our ships and mourn our dead. We want to make sure this never happens again." "Then what do you want?" Kael'thar asked. "Peace," Helena said simply. "Real peace. Not the peace of subjugation, but the peace of mutual respect. You will release your subject species. You will pay reparations, and in return, humanity will help establish a new order in this region of space, a coalition of free worlds where disputes are settled through negotiation, not conquest." The negotiations took 3 days. In that time, more Voxian systems declared independence. The kingdom that had stood for 3 millennia continued to crumble. Finally, Kael'thar signed the treaty. He had no choice. The formal surrender took place on Vox Prime, broadcast across the galaxy. Kael'thar, stripped of his title as Supreme Overlord, stood before Admiral Voss and representatives from Earth. "The Voxian kingdom formally surrenders to Earth and its allies," Kael'thar said, his voice heavy with defeat. "We will abide by the terms of the treaty." Helena nodded. "The war is over. Now comes the harder part, building something better." The aftermath of the war was complex. The Voxian kingdom fragmented into dozens of independent systems. Some former subject species sought revenge. Others sought reconciliation. Humanity found itself thrust into a peacekeeping role it had never asked for. Admiral Helena Voss stayed on Vox Prime for 6 months, overseeing the transition. She worked with moderate Voxian leaders to establish a democratic government. She mediated disputes between formerly enslaved species and their former masters. She tried to build something positive from the ashes of war. One day, she received a visit from former Overlord Kael'thar. He was under house arrest, awaiting trial for war crimes, but he had requested to speak with her. They met in a garden, surrounded by flowers that had somehow survived the battle for the city. "Why did you not execute me?" Kael'thar asked. "By Voxian tradition, defeated leaders are killed." "Earth abandoned execution decades ago," Helena replied. "We believe in justice, not revenge. You will stand trial. You will answer for your crimes. But you will be treated fairly." Kael'thar looked at the ruined buildings visible beyond the garden walls. "I have lived for 230 years. I commanded fleets. I conquered worlds. I thought I understood warfare. But humans, you are unlike any species I have encountered." "Because we fight dirty?" Helena asked with a slight smile. "Because you fight to win," Kael'thar corrected. "Most species follow rules of warfare, honor codes, traditions, but humans treat war as a problem to be solved by any means necessary. You sacrifice yourselves willingly. You use tactics others consider dishonorable. You never stop, never surrender, never accept defeat." He paused, then added quietly, "We saw a young species and assumed weakness. We did not realize we were looking at apex predators who had finally stopped hunting each other." Helena was silent for a moment. "Humanity spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing other humans. We developed weapons that could destroy entire cities. We fought wars that killed millions. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. When we finally went to the stars, we thought we had left that violence behind." She looked at Kael'thar directly. "You reminded us who we are, what we are capable of when pushed. I hope the galaxy learns from this." 6 months later, Helena returned to Earth. She arrived to find a world still healing. The orbital platforms were being rebuilt. The cities that were evacuated were being repopulated. But the scars remained. She visited the memorial wall, where the names of all those who died in the war were carved in black stone. 3 billion civilians, 200,000 military personnel. Each name represented a life cut short by a war they did not start. Chairman Martinez joined her at the wall. "They are calling you the savior of humanity." Helena shook her head. I am not a savior. I am just a soldier who did what was necessary. She touched one of the names on the wall, a young pilot she had known. They are the heroes, the ones who fought and died so the rest of us could survive. What will you do now? Martinez asked. We need to rebuild, Helena said, but we also need to make sure this never happens again. The galaxy has changed. The old order is broken. We need to help build a new one based on cooperation instead of conquest. She turned away from the wall. And we need the strongest military in known space, not to conquer, not to expand, but to ensure that no one ever threatens Earth again. Across the galaxy, the effects of the war rippled outward. The Voxian kingdom's collapse left a power vacuum. 47 formerly enslaved species were suddenly free. Some thrived, some struggled. Some descended into civil war. Humanity, thrust into a leadership role it had never sought, worked to establish the coalition of free worlds. It was not an empire. It was a voluntary alliance based on mutual defense and economic cooperation. Earth provided military protection and technological assistance. In return, member worlds maintained their independence and sovereignty. The galaxy watched this new power with a mixture of awe and fear. Some saw humanity as liberators, others saw them as potential conquerors, but all recognized one truth: Earth was not to be threatened. 10 years after the war, a Voxian journalist interviewed former Overlord Kylthar in his prison cell. The interview became famous throughout the galaxy. What is the most important lesson from your war with Earth? The journalist asked. Kylthar, now an old being by Voxian standards, looked at the camera with eyes that had seen too much. Never assume that youth means weakness. Never assume that isolation means ignorance. And never ever declare war on a species that has spent 10,000 years learning how to destroy itself. He paused, then added, The kingdom shattered beyond repair because we forgot a simple truth. Empires fall, but survivors remember. Humanity survived everything their own world could throw at them. Ice ages, plagues, wars, near-extinction events. What made us think we would be any different? The journalist pressed further. Do you regret the war? Every day, Kylthar said quietly. I sent millions to their deaths because of my arrogance. I destroyed a kingdom that stood for 3,000 years. And for what? Pride? Territory? In the end, we gained nothing and lost everything. What would you tell other species who might consider attacking Earth? Kylthar looked directly at the camera, his expression grave. Do not. Whatever you hope to gain, it is not worth the cost. Humanity does not fight wars to win. They fight wars to survive. And there is no force in the galaxy more dangerous than a species fighting for its survival. Back on Earth, Admiral Helena Voss, now retired, stood on the rebuilt orbital platform Armstrong and looked down at her homeworld. It was blue and green and beautiful, peaceful, safe. But the defense fleet patrolling nearby was the largest in known space. Railgun platforms dotted the orbital zone. Early warning systems monitored every approach vector. Earth would never again be caught unprepared. A young lieutenant approached her during her visit. Admiral Voss? I just wanted to say thank you. You saved us all. Helena smiled sadly. I hope we never have to do it again, Lieutenant. War is not glorious. It is not heroic. It is terrible and wasteful and tragic. We won because we had no choice. Remember that. Remember the cost. She looked back at Earth one final time. We sought peace. We were forced to war. We will never be unprepared again. But more than that, we will never forget what war truly costs. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity, the young species from a single world, had shattered an ancient empire and reshaped the political landscape of known space. They did not do it through superior technology or overwhelming numbers. They did it through sheer determination, unconventional thinking, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. The kingdom was broken beyond repair, but from its ruins, something new was growing. A galaxy where strength was respected, but aggression was punished. Where independence was valued over conquest. Where humanity stood watch, not as conquerors, but as guardians. And every species in the galaxy knew one thing for certain. Earth was humanity's home, and they would defend it with everything they had.